Hi, this is G.Ciminelli, and I'm really happy you can tune in today and listen to this really wonderful story that I wrote just a few days ago. It's called The Blanket, and I'd really like to share it with you in audio because I think we can reach a different part of our heart when we actually listen to people's voices rather than always just read. But feel free to read along if you're listening to this audio from the web page. I used to love the feeling of my blanket. It kept me warm, it made me feel safe, especially during the storms at night. I used to think, if only I could live life under a blanket, surely I will always feel this safe. I will always feel this warm. And so I did. Over time, I got used to my blanket, and it looked good too. It had a pattern that looked a lot like others and didn't stand out too much. Sometimes when I looked at other people's blanket, it even looked exactly the same. Little by little, people wrote on my blanket. They wrote things like, "Work hard and be successful. Do your homework and don't make mistakes. Keep your head up. Don't cause shame on your family or trouble to other people. Oh, and breakfast is the most important meal of the day." And over time, my blanket was full of words, pictures, and colors, just like so many others. It had been scribbled on by caretakers and teachers. Sometimes I would write things that I saw or that I ate. Other children would sometimes write on my blanket too, and even my parents and grandparents, not realizing then that all of them were doing the best they could on their journey in life. I know that now. But over time, and little by little, I noticed the blanket got heavier, especially when it rained. Still, I thought it was right to always carry my blanket. And when I eventually was old enough to work, I still stayed under my blanket. I did my best to please my parents, my bosses, and please other people, and I eventually got something in return: money, and apparently success. Over time, and much to my surprise, I met somebody else under that blanket, and we fell in love. But the reality was, the blanket felt even heavier. And along came two wonderful children who joined us under this blanket. Now, with a family and mortgage to pay, bills and work, I started to wonder about this blanket. Was it time to take it off? Could I take a peek? Was it even possible to take it off? Should I take it off? I started talking to people. "No," yelled the boss. "You'll never find another job outside the blanket." "No," yelled my parents-in-law. "You've got to keep making money to be happy." Well, the reality of it was, I wasn't happy. I had a house, 2 cars, a wonderful family, and all the things I was told would make me happy. But I just couldn't escape this strange feeling anymore. Then what? I began to ask. So one day I took all my courage. Despite all the ill advice, I decided to peek outside that blanket. And for a brief moment it felt amazing. A weight off my shoulders, even briefly. I was really amazed, but a little too scared, so I crept back underneath my blanket once more. And at times I would conjure up all my courage to try again, and though the fear was great, each time I did, I learned something new. Each time I took a peek, I stared a little longer, until at one point I realized something. After all this time, was the blanket a false illusion of warmth and safety? Did someone introduce this blanket for what reason? I don't remember being born with it. I had it after I was born, right? Someone gave it to me, perhaps. And perhaps so many of us are so used to having it that we've actually forgotten that the real me is living underneath it, cocooned, perhaps. When did it become our skin? Then I thought to wash the blanket. All the scribbles, all the words and the pictures could be washed off with just one laundry wash, and I could start a new definition of me. No, it is not enough. It still won't be real. The blanket can be fully removed. Yes, it must. We can all remove our blankets if only we can remember that it is actually there. And all this time I realized that I had forgotten that it was there. And so every day, little by little, I chose to remove the blanket, unveiling parts of myself I didn't even realize existed. It wasn't easy, because every time I removed it, it felt so unnatural, so testing, and so incredibly difficult until now. And here's what I realized. Many of us will not try to remove the blanket until we have passed on in this life. And even if we do realize, many of us still won't remove it. Dare to remove it. It will be too bright. Perhaps. Dare to remove it. You will see something very unfamiliar. Perhaps. Dare to remove it. You will be exposed for who you really are. Perhaps. Dare to remove it, and you will be cold and get hurt. Perhaps. Dare to remove it, and you will be alone. Perhaps. Dare to remove it, and people will laugh at you. Perhaps. Dare to remove it. Surely you will be criticized. Perhaps. Dare to remove it. You will not be accepted by others. Perhaps. And then I thought, dare to go back and replace all the perhapses with so what? And I reread these messages, and instead of saying perhaps, I said, so what? Because if you want to live a life without the blanket, it's going to take courage, and I mean a lot of courage. It's going to take humor, because people will laugh at you and they'll criticize you. It's going to take strength. But most of all, it's going to be a battle. And love needs to be the sole outcome. Dare to remove it, and you will feel that the weight that was holding you down has now gone. That life is both peaceful and exciting. That now nothing works the way it did under the blanket. That there are no more rules. That there are no more lies. That there are no more limits. And you get this overwhelming feeling of joy and empathy for all the other blankets you see. And you start to wonder if you should tell them to remove their blanket too. Most of all, you realize that what you thought love was is not love at all. And all the things that are essential were not underneath that blanket, but within you. And all along, that person you needed to love the most was actually you, without that blanket. Some of us will go through life without removing the blanket at all. Some of us will remove only a small portion, and then put it back over us again. And some of us will remove it, and then others will throw it back over us again. It still happens to me. It's just that I've become a little bit better at taking it off again, and for much longer periods. But I'm almost there, and when I am there, the feeling cannot be described with words of any language. Whichever you choose or are faced with, you can choose to live life with or without the blanket. The greatest gift to this world is on the other side of that blanket. That gift is you, and you have a lifetime to find it, to find you. Don't miss yourself. Thank you. I wish you love, peace, and respect.